Welcome to day 6 of the summer of 619. As promised yesterday, today is going to be big. Over a year ago, I reviewed a small collection of bad games from the Dragon Ball franchise, those being Taiketsu, Ultimate Battle 22, and Dragon Ball GT Final Bout. Final Bout ended up being so bad that I gave it a spot on my top 20 worst games ever list, and deservingly so. Taiketsu and Ultimate Battle 22 were also just terrible, and it made me realize that there's no shortage of bad Dragon Ball Z games, which is why I promised to make a sequel to that video, and here we are today. I've managed to find 3 more horrible Dragon Ball Z games that are certainly up to par with the games I've already reviewed. First up, we have Dragon Power for the NES. Get a look at this incredible cover. Isn't it just amazing and totally depictive of what Dragon Ball really is? Fuck no! Dragon Power is the American version of Dragon Ball Mystery of Shenron. See, this game was made in 1986, a full 12 years before any American could turn on their television and watch Goku collect the Dragon Balls. Despite this, Bandai decided to push the game to America, and in the realization that no one would have a fucking clue what the Dragon Balls were or who Goku was, decided to completely rip any mention of Dragon Ball from the game. This includes renaming and respriting almost all the characters. You'd think that this is the sort of stuff that makes a game bad, and while it certainly does contribute to why this game sucks ass, it's not the only reason, or even the main reason. Dragon Power was screwed long before Bandai ever localized it to America, and that's because Dragon Ball Mystery of Shenron is a stinking pile of shit by itself. Bandai didn't change any of the core elements during their localization of the game, so let's keep that in consideration. You'll first notice that these shit cutscenes move as quickly as Turtle himself. Half the time, the damn arrow isn't even pointing at whoever's speaking. When you're abruptly dumped into the game, you start hitting people with your penis so hard that they fly off the screen. The enemies aren't really much to speak of, at least not the blue ones. The gray ones are a bit tougher and carry a sword, which contributes to serious bullshit in terms of how fair this game is. Now, maybe I just suck at this game, or maybe the game sucks at being a game, but I can only get so far before I'm raped by one of these guys with the swords. The reason for this being this burly cocksucker. You only have 2 attacks against this asshole. A flying kick, which misses more often than it hits, and your punches. Now, you can only have so much patience with this piece of shit flying kick before you go insane and start punching the guy out of desperation. But what you don't notice is that your health is gradually decreasing faster and faster because he's hitting you a lot. Not to mention, there's also some shit hit detection where you could be a sizable distance away from him and he still manages to hit you. What I find most insulting is that in the very first issue of the late and great Nintendo Power, they mention Dragon Power, and there's a still frame with the caption, "Take this powerful jump kick." What a crock of shit. Now that we've established that this game is awful, let's take a look at the hilarity of the name changes. The Dragon Balls are now the Crystal Balls, but you still have to use the Dragon Radar to find them. Bulma is now Nora, Roshi is now Turtle Hermit, and the Kamehameha is now the Wind Wave. While Dragon Power is flat out bullshit, our next game takes the word boring to another level entirely. Meet Dragon Ball Z Legendary Super Warriors, or Dragon Ball Z Generic Adjectives Warriors. If you've ever wondered what it'd be like if Yu-Gi-Oh! Crossed over with Dragon Ball Z, you're in luck, because this is just that. Except, I kind of remember the Yu-Gi-Oh! Games on the Game Boy being fun. Oh, right, Legendary Super Warriors is on the Game Boy. We'll get back to that later. Legendary Super Warriors is a turn-based game functioning with cards inside the game. You hear this and think that it may be fun, you know, playing Dragon Ball Z with cards? But it's the most boring thing I've come across in quite some time. First off, you have to sit through a boring cutscene at the beginning which is unskippable. It basically details the plot of Dragon Ball Z in a very abridged manner and drops you off right where Piccolo starts training Gohan. Then you have to sit through a tutorial where Piccolo teaches you to fight with the cards. Maybe this is just me, but I found this confusing as all hell. There's different kinds of cards, and you have to input commands for said cards apparently in a time limit, and there's a cost for each card, and there's different stages of each card, and you have to save up points to use each card, and on top of all this, there's a certain amount of cards or a specific set of cards you can only use in one turn, and then there's wait a minute, what the fuck is this? I thought this was supposed to be a fighting game. You know, with action? It's Dragon Ball Z, one of the most highly revered anime of all time, specifically because of its action, and you're putting me through this bullshit tutorial for your bullshit card system? And not to mention, this is on the Game Boy. Can you imagine having bought this shit for the Game Boy and having to play this on a 160 pixel by 144 pixel screen? How awful would that be? I seriously never made it past the tutorial with Piccolo. Call me impatient or easily bored, but this game nearly put me to sleep. That isn't supposed to be happening when the anime the game is based on is notorious for its action and overbearing amount of fighting. For pure researching purposes, I looked up the game to see how the actual fights were, and they still look like shit. Does this really look exciting? I can't really consider this game bullshit because it doesn't necessarily appeal to me, and I know there's a lot of people who like this game and are gonna say I'm an idiot for not liking the slower pace, but the only thing really keeping me from saying that this game is bullshit is the final game on this list. I want you all to imagine a game. A crossover, more specifically. Take Grand Theft Auto and fuse it with Dragon Ball Z. How awesome would it be if this sort of game was promised to you? Now, I want you to imagine someone lying to you about all that. Imagine being trapped by invisible walls and having all your freedom restricted so you're forced to face the true horrors of terrible graphics, disgusting, floaty controls, and a barrage of glitches. That is Dragon Ball Z Sagas. By what some may describe as an omen, I was able to get my hand on a copy of this game and play it. While recording game footage in what others may describe as a miracle from God, the game crashed and refused to start again, thus deleting all of my recorded video and audio. Luckily, this place called YouTube exists, and none of you are safe from witnessing the horrors of Dragon Ball Z Sagas. Where the fuck do I even begin with all the problems this piece of shit has? Let's start with the graphics. Everything is so brightly colored that it makes it seem like things aren't shaded properly, so everyone looks like they just came out of the beta stage of the game. The backgrounds themselves are fine, although repetitive and ultimately lackluster. By the way, you'll be hearing those words repetitive and lackluster a lot during this. Like right now, when I talk about the game mechanics. The fighting is just plain boring. The moves and combos are repetitive and sort of nonsensical, and everything in between, like the key attacks and the special moves, feel uninspired and lackluster. This roster is also lackluster. It looks great on paper, but then you realize that nearly every incarnation of the characters is just a clone of the last one with different clothing and the same moveset. These are all pretty much cosmetic problems with the game, so let's talk about the actual putrid gameplay this bullshit really has. Oh my god. You control the characters as if the floor had just been waxed. And on top of that, the fucking horseshit controls are delayed. In a fighting game, this is absolutely unacceptable by itself. But it's certainly not helped by the fact that the flying is also a joke. Just when you think you can get off the ground and start picking up actual momentum in the game, you jump 1 foot off the ground and you fly? This is actually the flying in the game, people. It's useless. Just like all the combos in the game, because you can literally punch and kick people to death without a problem. Oh wait, there is a problem. It's called the camera. The people who made this game must have gone to the Bubsy 3D School of Camera Mechanics, because the camera is the shits. You can never control it, so it's either too goddamn close to you or so far away that you look like an ant on the screen. What's worse, when you're fighting enemies, you're often getting hit cheaply in the back or the front by enemies on hilltops that you can't possibly ever see because of the horrendous way the camera operates. There's a very famous quote that goes something like this: "Ideas are worth nothing, execution is everything." Dragon Ball Z Sagas is a combination of a lot of decent ideas, but the execution is also abso-fucking-lutely horrendous. And I haven't even mentioned all the glitches, like when your opponent's health never goes down, or when you phase right through mountains. I guess I shouldn't be so surprised at this, because after a little digging, I found out that Avalanche Software was behind this game. They have produced such critically acclaimed titles such as 25 to Life and Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero. Alright people, sorry to disappoint, but I'm gonna keep this one short. Fuck this game, and fuck pretty much anyone involved in the creation of it and the fabrication of the shitty gameplay that we were lied to about. Dragon Ball Z Sagas gets a rest in piss.